It's been another really big week in the Erin Patterson mushroom murder trial, with a juror kicked off the case yesterday. For more, we're joined by court reporter and the host of the Mushroom Case Daily podcast, Christian Silver. G'day, Christian. Tell us what happened with this juror.
Good morning, James. Yeah, there were some pretty dramatic scenes in the courtroom yesterday when the jury was informed that one of their own had been kicked off the case. The court said that it had received possibly credible information that this juror had been discussing the case with friends and family. Now, this is a big no-no, that you're definitely not meant to do this. Discussions about the case are only meant to be limited to the jury room and the jurors on the case. So if true, this would be a clear breach of the instructions that Justice Christopher Beale gave the panel at the very start of the trial. And he warned them. He said that in the past, some jurors have actually been sent to prison for discussing cases or conducting their own research. So now the jury is down to 14. Ultimately, it will only be a group of 12 who make the call on whether Erin Patterson is guilty or acquitted, but that will come later at the end of the evidence.
All right, and just tell us about the evidence. There was a lot of medical and scientific evidence put forward this week, wasn't there?
There was, James, and just a reminder, this case centres around a lunch that was held at Erin Patterson's house in July 2023, where she's invited 4 guests over to her place. A beef Wellington with mushrooms was served, and following the lunch, police alleged that the 4 lunch guests fell really, really sick. 3 of them ended up dying. So this week, attention turned to the medical evidence behind these prosecution claims. We heard yesterday from a toxicologist, Dimitri Demoulos, who explained some toxicology reports. And he said what he was looking for were toxins, effectively traces of death cap mushrooms. Now, he said he found traces of death cap mushrooms in beef Wellington leftovers that were recovered from Erin Patterson's bin. And he also recovered traces from a food dehydrator which Erin Patterson dumped at the local tip in the days after the lunch. The professor also said that he conducted analysis of human samples taken from the lunch guests. He found toxins present in Don Patterson and also in Ian Wilkinson, the sole survivor of the lunch. He said tests relating to Erin Patterson, however, did not return any positive results of traces of death cap mushrooms.
And Christian, we also heard that the jury was given a bit of a crash course in mushrooms. Tell us about this.
Well, James, a big issue in this case is the source of the mushrooms that were included in the beef Wellington dish. Erin Patterson says that the mushrooms came from a combination of a local supermarket and also from an Asian grocer somewhere in Melbourne's southeastern suburbs. But she was questioned during the investigation after the lunch about whether the mushrooms could have actually been picked from the wild, and she denied that initially during the questioning by investigators. So Dr. Tom May, a mycologist, a mushroom expert, was called to the stand this week, where he took the jury through a fungal masterclass, taking them on a tour of Victoria and the world to discuss the world of mushrooms. He was asked about Amanita phalloides, which is death cap mushrooms, and he said that, look, in the wild, it can be really difficult at times to distinguish Amanita phalloides from other species that grow. And he listed many species, which I definitely can't name because the scientific names are way too complicated, James. But ultimately, he reached the conclusion that it is difficult to tell them apart from others, especially if you don't really know what you're doing. James, this trial is continuing. More evidence today and still more to come next week.
Of course. All right, Christian, thanks for your time this morning.